Hi everyone, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll begin the session shortly in a few minutes as we wait for more participants to join in. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us once again in this series of Sphere India and Bal Raksha Bharat on the role of children and youth in accelerating climate resilience in India. And when we started with this series, this is the third webinar in this series. And when we started with this series, we were very sure that children and youth represent a powerful, often untapped resource for climate action. And engaging them actively in resilience building efforts not only protects their future, but also empowers them as leaders and change makers. And supporting climate resilience with and for children strengthens communities, mobilizing diverse stakeholders to champion policies and practices that safeguard children's rights and promote their role in building a more climate conscious and resilient future. So today's session is focused on climate for children, with and for children, building climate resilience with and for children. And we have a very enriching panel with us today, beginning with our moderator, Ms. Debadrita Sengupta from Bal Raksha Bharat. We also have Dr. S.K. Tawhidul Islam, Professor and Director, Institute of Remote Sensing and GIS, Jahangir Nagar University, Dhaka. We have Dr. Aniruddha De, Chairperson, Professional Institute for Development and Socio-Environmental Management, PRISM. Mr. James Kimanzi, Kenyan Peasants League youth leader. And we have some very inspiring young leaders from India as well. We have with us Ms. Insha Manzoor, Child Champion Bal Raksha Bharat, and Ms. Sheen Tyagi, Research Director, Youngo Finance and Markets Working Group, UNFCCC. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome all the panelists and participants to today's session. I look forward to a very insightful and enriching session. And I would like to hand it over to our moderator for today, Ms. Debadrita Sengupta.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and I am really very excited to see what kind of new insights come up and what are the reflections from both the scientists part of the panel as well as the children and youth volunteers that we have in climate action. We have very brilliant, some very brilliant youngsters with us today, and we look forward to hearing from them. But to start with, you always see climate action as a global crisis. We always do that. But it also has deep roots in the local contexts. How we ourselves act, what our mindset is, what our attitude is, what kind of work that we do, what are the challenges we are facing, how do we look at solutions, find solutions, how do we increase the adaptive threshold, how we make ourselves more resilient in terms of the increasing ever increasing risks and the intensity of the impact. So those are some of the questions that are very critical, and those that needs answers. But the answers differ from people to people, depends on the perspectives, depends on whether we are children, whether we are adults, whether we are youth, what kind of action that we are looking at, what kind of perspective that mindset that we are having in terms of taking this work forward. So this session today is going to be an intriguing exploration of the different perspectives, different mindsets, innovations, solutions, the kind of challenges that we are facing, and how do we overcome them, and how do we bring the children and youth of not only India but the entire world together. So in this situation, in this context, let me start with Dr. Tawhidul Islam. He's part of the seventh intergovernmental panel on climate change, and he is also a also a very renowned, experienced scientist. He has been working on different different actions to do with children's rights in a climate crisis, with UNESCO and other very well renowned organizations. And he has been part of the entire climate context scenario not only Bangladesh, but in the Asia Pacific, or even in the wider world for quite some time now. So, Dr. Tawhidul, let me start with you. When children and youth take up certain actions in the community or in their schools or in localities or neighborhoods, there are certain challenges that they tend to face. Sometimes we try to say that, oh, what do you understand? You are very young to understand this. Sometimes we put up the barrier in a different way. So there are different types of barriers that we put in their ways. And you have been you are well conversant with how young people face these challenges and how we can overcome them. So based on your experience, how do you think we can encourage more and more young people to come forward on this road and make this as much free from obstacles and barriers as possible, in your perspective, or in your experience? Tawhidul Sab, are you there? um, Gursimran, can you check if Sar has been able to
Uh,
log in?
Tohidullah, I believe he has been waiting for the link or something. So he requested me, and I was driving.
Okay.
So now I am present, and I am sharing him the link which you have sent.
That is wonderful. Thanks, Aniruddha. In that case, why don't we go with you, Aniruddha? Let's start with you, and then maybe we can come back to Tawhidul Sab sometime later on in the panel.
No problem, I can.
Yes, it will be really interesting to hear from you.
So just one moment, please. Let me share Tohid bhai this thing through WhatsApp.
Yes. While you do that, let me just recount. Very
Yeah.
first time I met Anuruddha was when I entered this sector for the first time. And most of what I have learned, or have tried to learn, has come from him, in a major way. And some of the things that I have seen him do, even before a lot of organizations talked about children and youngsters in climate action, I have seen him doing the Green Scout camps in North Bengal, remote rural areas, where he has been talking about weather stations and the star systems and a lot of different things that has to do with building resilience in youngsters. So, would be very interested to hear your perspective on it.
Uh, Thank you, Devadisa. Uh, in fact, I am also, but in the meantime, you can also check whether James has joined.
Yes. Gursimran, I'd request you to please
Yeah.
support on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And yeah, first of all, I would like to know who are the participants, and are they uh, convenient in this thing? Do they feel convenient in English, or I need to speak in Hindi?
And Dada, we have with us Insha, a child from Jammu and Kashmir, and I think she understands English pretty well. We can also switch to Hindi as part of the time. There is also James, who is from Kenya, as you well know, Dada, and he
Yeah.
is more conversant in English. There's Sheen Tyagi. She is a UNFCCC volunteer, and she is also conversant in English. Apart from that, you are there, and Tawhidul Sab is there,
Okay. So in fact, English is the preferred language.
and
So
maybe a little
I
Hindi.
maybe a little Hindi. Okay. So let me try saying this in English, and then I can speak in Hindi. So, in fact, what Devadita has said, Devadita, how much time I have for this thing, for
So we
discussion?
will be having rounds of questions. So for each question, you will have 6 minutes. For
Okay.
each question,
So,
we'll have six
okay.
minutes.
So, first is a briefing, and then some questions to come and to answer those questions. Okay.
No, 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 the
That's fine.
entire panel is in a talk show mode. So we will be asking you questions repeatedly. So this is the
Okay.
first question for you. So this will be completed in 6 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Then ask me the question. Yeah.
Yes. So, Dada, you have been working with youngsters for a long time. And in this particular journey, children and youngsters face a lot of challenges whenever they're trying to understand more about climate action or trying to implement any intervention on climate action on their own initiative, trying to build awareness in the community, so on and so forth. So, in this journey, how do you think we as adults, and not only as adults, but people who have been working in different ways to support climate action at the local level, how do we ensure that children and youngsters have a more obstacle free pathway towards building climate action, towards more collaborative climate action, bringing them all together?
In fact, as you asked this, so in 2003, I'm talking about those days. So when this Green Scout concept was initiated, and Green Scout movement also was initiated. So it is basically what we have seen, that in the system, in the national, in international, whatever, in the system, there is no space for the children to share their views. And to us, they, it may be wrong, it may be something different, but to them it is not wrong. So there are two different types of people. One is that who will be the implementer and who will be the facilitator. So our role, those who are seniors, we can play the role of facilitators. We can facilitate, we can tell them that uh, those who are not exposed, so how they can arrange their things, they can organize their projects or whatever it is, their thoughts, whatever it is. So that way, first consideration is that children are the future citizens of India. So if they are the future citizens of India, so it is not only India, they are the future citizens of their nations. So it can be Kenya, it can be Bangladesh, it can be Nepal, it can be Vietnam, it can be any place. So if it is so, everybody is not just writing and believing it. Just writing is something and believing is something different. So if people are believing it, then they need to get into some actions, and one action is to organize these children in a uh, place, so that a network will be created, a movement by the children will be initiated. So that is how it is Green Scouts movement. There are lots of problems when we initiated those things. So I can tell you some good examples, like in Alipur Duar, because of broad network, broad gauge network. I am talking about the railways network, broad gauge network, and proximities to Nepal, proximities to Bangladesh, proximities to Bhutan, Assam. In Alipurduar, trafficking was very high. Trafficking, and it is both women's trafficking and children trafficking, child trafficking. So nowadays, if you take the statistics, you will be um, surprised to know that how this Green Scout movement can minimize, can reduce this trafficking, because the Green Scouts, they were told that there will be trafficking, there will be traffickers, but you please observe your visitors and children. They take immense pleasure of doing something, that the seniors have told us to do something, so they will do that. And if that is so, then the next step is that they should inform, they should be vigilant and inform this to their coordinator, and that coordinator will talk to the police administration. Then police administration will be aware, and police administration, so the children, they will not be victims, they will never be, nobody knows that who has done this. So that way this can be done. Like food adulteration. So in the villages, when we are small, we are young kids, then we have seen that borof malai kind of things were there in the villages. So some vendor, he was selling some uh, candies. But nowadays, what has happened, when we informed them that the red color is made from concealed red, uh, machakite green is the color, then this methanol yellow. So these are some colors actually not for human consumption. So these are used because the vendors, from where they are buying, so they cannot afford to buy something available in quality shop or somewhere else. So this is just to satisfy their needs. Likewise, the Pepsi things. So they cannot buy Pepsi bottles, but they are buying 2 rupee Pepsi plastic sachet. So the water, the color, and it is being actually sweetened by using saccharin. So saccharin is harmful for health. So all these things, when they have learned, they have stopped taking all these things. So, and not only stop, they have stopped the vendor to come into their village. We have seen, we have noticed that in a village, that plastic wastes like carry bag, that in tea garden areas we have been working, and they are getting their salaries, their honorarium in 7 days, sometimes in 15 days. So people are buying something, some good things. So like chicken is, they consider it is a good thing for their children. So they buy chicken in a plastic packet, plastic carry bag. So that plastic carry bag is not good for health. So what we cannot do, we can simply say lots of things against plastic carry bag. But the children, what they did, they just inserted one young child, he inserted his hands into the pocket of the aged person who actually was holding the carry bag. So then he said that, काका, आपका पॉकेट में तो, आपका जेब में तो रुमाल है, तो इसमें क्यों बांध के नहीं लाए हैं? तो अगर इस बार हम छोड़ देंगे, लेकिन इसको हम इसमें बांध देते हैं, इस बार छोड़ देते हैं, पन्नी को पन्नी में आप लाए हैं तो कोई पनिशमेंट नहीं होगा, लेकिन दूसरा बार से पनिशमेंट होगा. तो the fellow, he has never thought of something had happened, and he has never actually carried any single use plastic. So likewise, there are so many things our children can solve, but we need to understand and believe that yes, our children has the potentials and they can solve, but they need to be united. And most of the programs we see that these are school-based programs. So school-based programs are for the agencies for different agenda. But for me, for us, it is not the school based program, it is a community based program, because in the community there will be peer pressure so that school dropouts can also be addressed. So there are lots of things, and in community, children, when they go to their school and they say that we have learned this, like first aid, so they know what are the rescue things, how do they rescue, how they use a bandage, triangular bandage, and different things. So when they share this with their peer groups, then the peer group people, they say that we didn't get that type of exposure. So how did you get? So
Right.
that way you can expand your network. Thank you.
So those are some very inspiring examples how children have taken action, and I'm sure this is either building up memories for some of our participants, most definitely here, or at least people are thinking that how they can also take some action in terms of collaborations of children and youth, trying to develop their resilience to communities not listening, or trying to overcome the different types of barriers, whether it be semantic barrier, it be political barrier, it be social, economic, any kind of barrier. But one thing that is coming up very loudly and clearly through what you said, Anuruddha, is that when children and youth get together, they form teams, they form collaborations, and they can think together, they have the right information at hand, they can do a lot of good things. So that is coming up very loudly and clearly through all your examples, and thank you for that, Aniruddha. And let me ask James here. James is here from Kenya, and he has been working in his country on a lot of very active community empowerment work, climate justice related work, and sustainable development related work. He's a very active member of the Kenyan Peasants League and Youth Conclave. So, James, you heard what Aniruddha had to say about the children and youngsters in India, in the remotest possible areas of North Bengal. What about you? What are the challenges that you see in your community, and how can you give some examples of how you have been able to overcome those challenges? And just like what we see from Aniruddha's discourse, that collaboration is key. Having the right knowledge, right information, the right skills is key. What do you feel are the key things that you feel should be necessary on this journey of climate action? James, please unmute yourself and uh, speak to
Okay,
us.
okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, definitely. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much for this meeting. My name is James Kimanzi from Kenya. I'm a member of the Kenyan Peasants League. Kenyan Peasants League is a non-governmental organization that advocates at most for organic farming, environmental sustainability, and climate resilient activities. And one of the main
James, we might have lost you. James, can
Can
you
you hear
hear
me?
us? Yes, now we can hear you. Yes, please go ahead.
So as we know that climate change is a it impacts every aspects of children lives at most youth, because I'm very sure when you guys talk of children, youths are also included, from their physical health and emotional well-being to their access to education and basic resources, maybe like clean water and basic resources. Last time Aniruddha was in Kenya and was teaching people on how to use clean water, and that's a very basic resource. Within rising temperatures, even natural disasters and changes in seasonal patterns, children's and I mean children's, and at most those in vulnerable communities, because in Kenya there are a lot of vulnerable communities. I think they are disproportionately affected because these disruptions threaten not only their immediate safety and even also their health. And in Kenya, I've been working with the youths, the youth of the Kenyan Peasants League in association with other youths from other organizations. We have tried on how we can bring projects that can empower young children together with the youth. We have also done this we call community cleanups. We have been doing community cleanups from 2019, and we can say that we have really made a very big impact. And one problem that I think affects the youth, and the youth lacks at most is basic education. Education is a very key factor because it's good if youths are educated about matters concerning climate. Because when now they know what's climate, the impact of climate change, and how they can really lead themselves to the whatever we call climate justice, it can be very good. So I think by supporting the education on climate issues and promoting even platforms where they can advocate for change, where they can be inspired by leaders who are resilient and proactive, the empowerment process can not only benefit them, but also brings even a fresh perspectives to even a larger climate resilience movement. So in this our organization known as the Kenyan Peasants League, we have been advocating for climate justice from 2016. And now I can say that we are also in a war because our government has lifted the GMO case in our country. And now they want to tell us that in Kenya now it's a GMO, like they want to import GMOs in Kenya. And we are in a war because we know how GMOs can really bring climate change. So whatever now we have been doing, I've been also working with the youths. We are collecting signatures because we need to file a petition again to the court on that matter of GMO. And many people in Kenya don't know about GMO. That's why I'm talking about education. And this education should be most targeted to the youth. And I think this education can really help the youth when it comes to advocacy, maybe policy advocacy. So this our activity of collecting signatures. It's going to start tomorrow, because we think that the government now has violated our rights here in Kenya, and we are standing strong because we know we are in a war. This is a movement, and it's really a war. When we look at, because there's a country, and I'm very sure that you are aware of it, the South Africa. South Africa has been fighting for this GMO so that they can be removed out of their country from 9 years back, and now last week they won. And now the effect of the case of GMO now is not in South Africa, but now our government, while even viewing whatever happened in South Africa, they were able to bring this case of GMO. It's really astonishing, but well, we are there. So another let me talk of this building climate resilience for children. And I'm very sure it involves both immediate actions and even long-term strategies. I talked of expanding maybe climate education, where we can even implement climate literacy programs in schools and communities to help children understand the science and the impact of climate change, the knowledge, and equip them even to make them become more informed on choices and participate meaningfully in climate initiatives. I have conducted more than 15. I've conducted more than 15 climate resilient initiatives, including the community cleanups, and I'm very sure, because let me tell you that when you look of something like like when you are advocating for something and maybe you want to pass the information to the community members, when interest, maybe you are calling upon them to do something, interest is a very key factor, because you may end up calling someone but is not interested in these activities. Obvious have been me as and my organization, we have been using maybe some funds. And these funds, maybe when I call for a community cleanup, and it's a must, the youths want to be, maybe they want lunch. So I've been using funds maybe when conducting these climate initiatives. And you may find because of lack of education, the youth don't have the education that this thing is going to benefit them. They want maybe they want some money. If you want them to take part in these activities, they want you to give them some money. That is really, it's because of lack of education, because these activities are mostly aimed at empowering them. They are mostly aimed at helping them to live in a climate resilient area. So I back up education to as a very big key factor when it comes to climate matters for children and youth. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. And you know, uh, you have actually pinpointed the very basic, the very foundational problem. Inclusion of risk factors, inclusion of risk awareness, understanding of risk impacts, and what is the kind of what are the kind of changes that we are going through, and what impact it has on our daily lives, our environment, our surroundings, our ways of working, our lives, our livelihoods. These all need to come into the education curricula. Very fortunately, we have today Tawhidul Saab with us, and he has worked with UNESCO in terms of a lot of he has a lot of deep dived into the education aspect of the of crisis resolution, of crisis modifiers in education continuity, education, continuing education in the current climate crisis context. So let me request Tawhidul Sab to come forward and maybe give us some suggestions based on his work, his experience, his thoughts about how best to include climate action, climate justice, the concepts of risk mitigation, risk reduction into the education curricula. What standards are we looking at? What kind of information are we looking at? How do we deliver that information? How best to ensure that it reaches not only children and youth, but also in the adult education, in distance education, in continuing education aspects as well. So because it's not only about children and youth, but it's also about creating an enabling environment for the children and youth to work together, to go on this journey. So how do we look at all those different aspects and come to certain solutions? Aniruddha, I'll come back to you after Tawhidul Sab.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me in this very nice session. And I was just listening to what the earlier speakers talked about the issue. Basically, these questions, I would send me those questions, and I also just learned something from Dr. Aniruddha and also from Kenya. This is a complicated question. This is a tough question. This is not easy at all. And things are just. It seems to me that we're just in an ocean of just the problems. We had huge problems. We our education system never been in a good shape. The British, they established the educational institutions, and then we just saw that the social influencers and the jamindars and some good people in the past, they developed the institutions, and we are, many of us are the beneficiaries of those particular systems. I just came from Borishal. This is a place in the it's a coastal town in located in the southern parts of Bangladesh, and I just came from Brojo Mohan College. So the person Brojo Mohan, he established that college. So similar kind of college, and the which were converted into universities. There are many references, but the unfortunate thing is we failed to take those particular education institutions forward to cater the need of the time. And Additionally, we have seen that many different challenges have been emerged in the in the globe, in the world. The war, the disaster frequency, the climate change, and there are so many different things just made this situation very complicated. So when you are just asking what we could do to support the youngsters or to develop the curricula, it is really difficult. Then my question would be like, we are just supporting what kind of support we are just going to provide, and where those particular children and the youngsters are living. Are they living in the coastal areas? Are they living in the urban areas? Are they in the hills or the floodplains or the delta frontiers? So and all those particular geographical regions got different kind of challenges from this students part, from the teachers, and also the the people who are just working behind to develop the policy and other instruments. And it is also an important thing, just whom you are just talking about. Is it the people from the ethnic community, like what Dr. Rudu said, in the northern part of West Bengal, or the people or the children, they are coming from the poor sections of of our city. So it is really a difficult thing. And sometimes when I just think of these particular challenges, and when climate change issues are just coming to action, it is really difficult. And I have shared two documents, and you could just see that the state of the education in Bangladesh in one report, UNESCO report that was published in 2015. I have found, I surveyed, I think, 1800 schools. Very detailed survey was undertaken and those schools were distributed in 12 disaster and climate change hotspots in Bangladesh. And I have found that almost half of the schools, they said that their school buildings and the infrastructure are they are non-concrete made, and half of the classrooms are not just in a position to use for educational purposes. The wash facilities in half of the schools, the water supply, sanitation facilities are gone. And about 70-80% schools reported that their school were used in the last disasters as the cyclone shelters or the flood shelters, and they did not just able to recover the damages caused by those people who just were here. So many different problems are there. So it is not only a matter of just including some of the issues in the curriculum and get the things ready for good learning, to ensure good learning environment in the schools. We could just do something, but as an academician, I always just try to see things from a bigger picture, and we could just connect our small actions, though those are very important, from a bigger picture kind of thing, and we could just connect our small actions with the bigger frameworks. And we could just what you could do, we could just I don't know what could we just start supporting the people, the students who are just suffering from a range of disaster impacts in while they are in the learning environment. Maybe one option could be that we could just ensure that the minimum education standards in those particular schools that we see that you have, and you are just in practice, I'm sure about it, that is the interagency network for education in emergencies. So maybe they have their standards for in 5 domains, and a number of standards they mentioned. Maybe we could just start from there. Otherwise, if you just it is not possible to just to address all the problems at the same time. Maybe we have to just prioritize, and that priorities might just start from that particular minimum standards. And we have many instruments, many different disaster risk management policies, and the global structures like the Hugo framework of action that we had from 2005 to 2015, and then we are just currently having Sandy framework, and all those particular reports and the frameworks are just asking us to do very good kind of risk assessment kind of thing, then risk governance, then just asking for the requesting for the money or the financial resources to make the disaster response more resilient, more effective for resilience building. So all those things are there. But the question remains that why despite having the fact that the instruments are there, the policies are there, the commitments are there from the international arena, international bodies like UNDRR and also other agencies, and also from the national governments, why things are worsening and why things are not just improving over the time. So that particular question we need to just ask, and then we need to just devise the strategies that will just support us to make sure that the children are going to school and they are just taking lessons and they are getting prepared for the days to come. So that is, I have no immediate solution to the problem. How could we just help the children? But definitely, I agree with Dr. Aniruddha that we could just ask the students to collaborate with the efforts, whatever they could, to support to support and make sure that the learning environment is at least good for taking lessons. And we could just promote the collaboration. We could just also think of promote or encourage the students to do different volunteer activities with the resources, a small amount of resources or the energy or the goodwill they have. So I think this is very complicated, and we need to think of those particular things, that we are just having a number of number of challenges that we inherited from the past events, and then we are just having different kinds of problems at this moment from climate change and disaster frequency and the intensity and other kind of thing that that. And we are just also heading into a future. If you just read a new report that appeared recently published by United Nations Environment Program, that is, the title of the report is Navigating New Horizons, a Global Foresight Report on Planetary Health and Human Well-being. And they have identified 18 different new threat areas distributed under 8 global shift areas. They call it shift areas. So you could just see that the problems, new challenges are just emerging, and we are just already in the challenge, and we are just we have inherited a number of challenges. So it is really complicated, and we need to just think the education managers, the philanthropists, very big NGO professionals. You are just working. We are here. The students are there. The teachers are there. So we need to just think very critically. How could we just solve the issue? Some of the problems are reported in those particular reports. We know the report very well, but we don't know how could we just bring the commitments from different stakeholders to make sure the education system is good, and will just get a good generation to face the upcoming disasters in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tahil Sab, and it really makes us think how uh, how complicated the entire dynamics is, because if we see, it's not only about you know um, continuing education in emergencies. It is also about ensuring that education is in a safe and wholesome learning environment, where schools have all kinds of, and at least a minimum standard infrastructure, minimum standard teaching learning materials, and children can access them, do not lose their school days because of avoidable circumstances. Those are some of the minimum things that we need to focus on, apart from the curriculum thing. And I'm also thinking, as you were speaking about whom are we targeting, which children are we targeting, I was also thinking about the kind of intersectionalities that we see in any any environment. Children and youngsters are not a homogeneous group, though we tend to kind of think in a one size fits all approach. But we need to very very consciously steer away from that, and that is something that I am taking as a takeaway from you, sir. You made us think a lot. We need to deep dive into this subject. Maybe we can have a separate discussion altogether, uh, deep diving into this particular subject as to what are those challenges and what are the particular solutions that can be done for those challenges, and who all can come together in order to take those solutions forward, because it is not the work of one person or one organization or even one expert. It is something that needs collaboration, that needs connection between different sectors, different people, different organizations with different strengths that complement each other. And that is coming forward more and more strongly as we move forward with our discussions. Thank you so much, sir. I will request Aniruddha to come up with his point. Sir, very briefly, Aniruddha, I can give you 2 to 3 minutes maximum, and then I'll move on to Insha, who has joined, and then we will go on to Sheen.
No issue, Devadita. I have already written all those points in the chat box that this GMO, what was referred, that is different from, uh, but actually we need to understand because their staple food is something different and which is corn based, and no non-GMO corn is available as of now. And so that I have already written, and based on the question you have asked, it's not a question, based on the summary you have given. So my point is that who is a big question. So in all projects we talk about ownership, management, partnership, all these blah 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 languages we are using. So, unless and until ownership comes, nothing can be changed. Nothing can be changed. So, the children needs to take the ownership. They should own it. But each collaboration, like youth conclave, it is the younger generation. They will take the initiative, and we will be there, we will remain there, we will be there to facilitate them, always to help them. And it is not only because we have vested interest that our earth should be livable. So for that we have been doing it. So will continuously doing that. But the children and the youth, they should take the ownership, and they should think what they, if it is wrong, if it is wrong in that sense that my perception of resilience is something different from someone's perception, maybe, but that is not wrong, that is difference. So this differences of opinion means the diversity, and this diversity, when it is there, so we will come to a solution. So that is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dada, because we have a lot of diversity in different contexts in our country, and until and unless we can respect that diversity, we can celebrate that diversity, it'll be very difficult to we speak a lot about localization, right? Because but without respecting diversity, we can never really reach localization. That is what I feel. But less about me and more about the panelists that we have. Gursimran, has Insha been able to join? Insha is our youth champion from Kashmir, and she has been having some network problems, which is quite understandable. Gursimran, has Insha been able to
Yeah.
join?
Yes, ma'am. He's here.
She is here. Wonderful. Great. Welcome, Insha. And sorry to throw you directly right under the bus, but we would like to understand from you your experience. Your experience is a little different in the context, the local context that you have. Your experience of facing obstacles and overcoming challenges while you were working on climate action and peace building in your state. इंशा क्या मैं हिंदी में भी बता दूं आपको और आर यू कंफर्टेबल?
Yes, ma'am, please.
जी, तो आपने बहुत काम किया है जम्मू एंड कश्मीर के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, और वहां पे आपने क्लाइमेट एक्शन के साथ साथ पीस बिल्डिंग पे भी काम किया है। आप यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ कश्मीर के नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस में भी भाग ले चुकी हैं, और भी काफी सारा काम आप कर रहे हैं। क्या आप हमें बता सकते हैं कि ये जो काम आप कर रहे हैं इसके दौरान आपको क्या-क्या चैलेंजेस फेस करने पड़े, और उस चैलेंजेस को आपने कैसे ओवरकम किया? आपके पास 6 से 7 मिनट की समय दी जाती है। थैंक यू।
Uh, good evening, ma'am. मैम पहले मैं
गो अहेड इंशा।
मैम सॉरी, मुझे यहाँ पे पता नहीं कुछ एरर आ रहा है। अ, मैम पहले मैं अपना इंट्रोडक्शन देती हूँ। मेरा नाम इंशा मंजूर है और मैं जम्मू एंड कश्मीर से हूँ। तो मैम मुझे बहुत टाइम हुआ जब पहले मैंने पीस एजुकेशन में भी काम किया। उसके बाद जो आज मेरा खुद का एक प्रोजेक्ट चल रहा है ड्रीम एक्सेलेरेटर, उसमें हम एफॉरेस्टेशन कर रही हूँ मैं, उसमें मैंने एफॉरेस्टेशन का प्रोजेक्ट लिया है। और पहली अगर मैं अपनी बात करूँ कि जब मैंने स्टार्ट किया, मैंने जब जाना पीस एजुकेशन के बारे में, चाइल्ड राइट्स के बारे में, तो वो हमारे लिए न्यू था क्योंकि कश्मीर में अगर हम देखें हमें चाइल्ड राइट्स के बारे में पता नहीं होता है। क्या है चाइल्ड राइट्स? यहाँ पे बच्चों को नहीं पता होता है वो क्या है। और जब हमने जाना अपने राइट्स के बारे में, मुझे नहीं पता था चाइल्ड राइट्स क्या है, क्या होते हैं चाइल्ड राइट्स। जब जाना उसके बाद क्या हुआ, फिर मैंने क्या किया, हमने अपना ग्रुप बनाया, चाइल्ड ग्रुप, हमने उसमें काम किया। हमने ड्रग्स पे काम किया, हमने बच्चों के साथ काम किया जो उन्होंने ड्रॉप आउट किया था स्कूल, उनको वापस स्कूल आया। मैम मुझे लगता है कि अगर एक बच्चे को कुछ करना है तो उसको पहले वो खुद फिजिकली डेवलप्ड होना चाहिए, मेंटली डेवलप्ड होना चाहिए। एक बच्चा इमोशनली भी उसको डेवलप्ड करना है। तो एक बच्चे को फिजिकली डेवलप करने के लिए हमें उसको क्या करना चाहिए, हमें उसको स्पोर्ट्स के साथ इन्वॉल्व करना है क्योंकि स्पोर्ट्स हमें क्या करता है, स्पोर्ट्स हमें बच्चों को क्या करता है, फिजिकली भी फिट करता है, इमोशनली भी फिट करता है और मेंटली भी फिट करता है। और जो क्लाइमेट है, हम देखें यहाँ पे जो क्लाइमेट चेंज होती है हमारे यहाँ पे, तो उसमें से क्या होता है, उसमें कभी फ्लड आता है, उसमें कभी क्या होता है, उसमें ये ड्रॉट्स भी होते हैं। हम कश्मीर की बात करें तो यहाँ पे बहुत सारे तरीके के ये होते हैं, क्लाइमेटिक चेंज होते हैं। तो बच्चे उससे बहुत ज़्यादा मुतासिर होते हैं। बच्चों की पढ़ाई पे असर पड़ता है, बच्चों के दिमाग पे असर पड़ता है क्योंकि जब बच्चे इसमें इन्वॉल्व होते हैं, तो वो ठीक से वो जान नहीं पाते कि ये हो क्या रहा है। उनकी हेल्थ इश्यूज़ होते हैं, ख़ासकर जब ड्रॉट्स होते हैं, जब फ्लड्स होते हैं, तो बच्चों की जो हेल्थ है वो खराब हो जाती है। माल न्यूट्रिशन में इन्वॉल्व होते हैं और उसके बाद क्या होता है, काम भी नहीं कर पाते। जब वो माल न्यूट्रिशन के शिकार हो जाते हैं, वो ठीक से काम भी नहीं कर पाते हैं, वो कुछ भी नहीं कर पाते हैं। तो स्टूडेंट्स को बिल्ड करना है, एक बच्चे को बिल्ड अप करना है, तो हमें ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा उनको इमोशनली डेवलप करना है, हमें उनको मेंटली डेवलप करना है, हमें उनको फिज़िकली डेवलप करना है। तो अगर वो स्कूल जाते हैं, हमें क्या स्कूल में करना है ताकि वो हीट से परेशान ना हो, वो किसी और चीज़ से परेशान ना हो, हमें उनको क्या करना है, हमें वहाँ पे स्कूल में खासकर करना है कि हमें उनको वहाँ पे ग्रीन बेल्ट्स लगाने हैं। हमें छोटे-छोटे पौधे होते हैं, बच्चों को उसमें इन्वॉल्व करना है कि घर पे भी लगाओ, बाहर भी लगाओ, सब जगह आप ये पेड़-पौधे लगाओ। इससे क्या फ़ायदे होंगे, हमें बच्चे को क्योंकि पता होता है और हमें उनको बोलना है कि आप ये काम करो, इससे आपको फ़ायदा मिलेगा। और उसके बाद क्या होगा, जब ग्रीन बेल्ट्स होंगे, वेस्टेज बिन्स होंगे क्योंकि खासकर अगर हम बात करें जो गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स होते हैं, वहाँ पे क्या होता है, वहाँ पे उतना बच्चे जो है बहुत गरीब घरों से आते हैं, वो उनको नहीं पता होता है कि डिकम्पोज़र वेस्ट किसमें डालना है और कंपोज़र जो होता है वो किसमें डालना है। तो वो क्या करते हैं, वो सारा कूड़ा एक ही में डालते हैं। हमें उन बच्चों को सिखाना है, आपको क्या करना है, कैसे करना है, हमें उनको बताना है कि आप ये काम करें, ऐसे आप ठीक हो जाओगे, ये काम करोगे, इससे आपकी सेहत पे बुरा असर पड़ेगा, आपकी हेल्थ खराब होगी। तो हमें बच्चों को वैसे ट्रेन करना है, हमें बच्चों को बोलना है आप कैसे अपना ये बढ़ा सकते हो, इम्यून सिस्टम कैसे डेवलप कर सकते हो अपना। आप गेम्स में हिस्सा लो, आप जो भी काम होता है क्योंकि आजकल के बच्चे ज़्यादा फ़ोन से इन्वॉल्व रहते हैं, हमें उनको फ़ोन अट्रैक्शन से दूर रखना है, हमें उनको बोलना है, आप बाहर जाओ, आप खेलो कूदो, साफ-सुथरी जगह पे रहो। अगर आपके घर में कुछ है तो घर पे गंदा कूड़ा है, कुछ है तो उसको हटाओ, घर वालों को बोलो घर पे गंदगी मत रखो, बाहर इर्द-गिर्द गंदगी मत रखो, वो साफ रखो। तो मुझे लगता है उससे बच्चे बहुत ये हो जाएँगे और जो एक फिज़िकली जो बच्चा फिट होना चाहिए, मेंटली वो बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है क्योंकि मेंटली अगर बच्चा डिस्टर्ब है, तो मुझे लगता है वो कुछ नहीं करेगा क्योंकि जब उसको डिप्रेशन होता है, बहुत सारे बच्चे क्या होते हैं, उनको पेरेंट सपोर्ट की बहुत ज़रूरत होती है। जब मैं अपनी बात करूँगी, जब भी मैं कहीं जाती हूँ तो मैं माँ-बाप को बोलती हूँ कि मुझे ऐसा काम है, ये करना है, तो मुझे बा मम्मा-पापा बोलते हैं, सारे टीचर्स बोलते हैं, "यू कैन डू इट", आप कर लोगी, कोई टेंशन नहीं है। जब मुझे वो कॉन्फिडेंस देते हो तो मेरा खुद का कॉन्फिडेंस खुद ही वो होता है, मैं बोलती नहीं मैं क्यों नहीं कर पाऊँगी। तो वो उनको होना चाहिए, उनको हमें यहाँ से कॉन्फिडेंस देना, नहीं आप कर पाओगे, आप लड़ पाओगे इससे, कोई बच्चा बीमार है उनको वो करना है, नहीं, उनको बोलना है कि अगर कुछ है तो आप करोगे, आप लड़ पाओगे किसी भी चीज़ के साथ। आपके साथ कोई अन्याय हो रहा है, आप लड़ो उससे, क्योंकि हम कोई बच्चा बोलेगा मुझे कुछ हुआ है, घर पे उससे कुछ हो रहा है, कोई कुछ बोल रहा है, तो वो क्या करता है, वो बोलता है करो चुप। अगर मैं किसी को बोलूँगा तो घर वाले भी नहीं समझते, बाहर वाले भी नहीं समझते। लेकिन हमें बच्चों को वो समझाना है कि क्या होता है, क्या नहीं होता है। आजकल भी हमारे समाज में क्या है, बहुत सारे लोग हैं, वो बच्चों को उतना ये नहीं करते। वो बोलते अगर हम बच्चों को बोलेंगे गुड टच के बारे में, बैड टच के बारे में, तो शायद वो हम यहीं से उनको कुछ ये दे रहे हैं, गलत इन्फॉर्मेशन। पर वो गलत बात है। मुझे लगता है एक बच्चे को बिल्ड अप करने में उसके माँ-बाप का बड़ा हाथ होता है, तो हमें पहले पेरेंट्स को भी बोलना है। आप अपने बच्चों को कैसे करें? वो स्कूल जाते हैं, उनको वाटर बॉटल्स, लंच बॉक्स वो सब मिलना चाहिए। अगर वो गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स में है, तो गवर्नमेंट स्कूल में मिड डे मील मिलता है। टीचर्स को ख़्याल रखना है, बच्चे खाते हैं, इनको सही से मिलता है वो मिड डे मील। इनको देखना है कि कोई गंदी चीज़ मत इसमें हो यूज़ हो रहा है, वाटर साफ़ है, नहीं है, वो हमें ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा देखना है बच्चों के बारे में। और हमें ज़्यादा जो आजकल के बच्चे हैं, वो ज़्यादा जंक फूड्स खा रहे हैं, हमें उस पे ध्यान रखना है, क्योंकि उससे उनके ज़्यादा ये हो रहे हैं, हेल्थ इश्यूज़ हो रहे हैं, तो हमें उन पे भी ध्यान देना है। और बच्चों को जब भी कोई बच्चा हो तो हमें उसको कॉन्फिडेंस देना है, उसको ये पीछे नहीं खींचना है कि नहीं तू नहीं कर पाएगा, उसको कॉन्फिडेंस देना है। जैसे मैं जाती हूँ कहीं पे भी, जब भी मैं कहीं जाती हूँ तो मुझे टीचर्स का भी ये होता है। मैंने आपसे बोला कि मुझे टीचर्स सपोर्ट करते हैं, लेकिन वैसे ही अगर मुझे स्टूडेंट्स का सपोर्ट नहीं हो, जो भी मैं करती हूँ मुझे उसमें स्टूडेंट्स का सपोर्ट भी मिलता है। अगर आप आगे जा रही हो, हम आपके साथ-साथ हैं, आप कुछ भी करो हम साथ हैं, क्योंकि मैं स्कूल में प्रेज़िडेंट भी हूँ, तो मुझे पता है, मुझे उनका भी ख़्याल रखना पड़ता है। हमारे स्कूल में हमने बहुत सारे डस्टबिन्स रखे हैं, ग्रीन, येलो, हम सब कुछ अलग-अलग करके डालते हैं। उससे क्या हुआ, पहले हमारे वॉशरूम्स गंदे रहते थे, आज हम खुद ही गर्ल्स हायर सेकेंडरी में हूँ मैं, आज हम खुद ही लड़कियाँ वो बोलते हैं टीचर्स को नहीं, हमें ऐसे करना चाहिए, हमें ये करना चाहिए, जिस-जिस चीज़ की ज़रूरत है हमें वो स्कूल में होना चाहिए, क्योंकि अगर नहीं होगा तो हम बीमार पड़ जाएँगे। तो हमें वही देखना है, हमें बच्चों की ज़रूरतें पूरी करनी है कि उनको किस चीज़ की ज़रूरत है, और जिस भी चीज़ की ज़रूरत है तो हमें उनको पूरा करना है। स्कूल में हमें उनको वॉशरूम्स देखने हैं, उनके वॉशरूम साफ़ है, कुछ है तो हमें वो देखने हैं कि उनके वॉशरूम्स कैसे हैं, क्योंकि वो बहुत बड़ी बात होती है, क्योंकि जब छोटे बच्चे होते हैं, तो उनका क्या होता है कि वो उनके वॉशरूम्स वो जाते हैं, और वो कोई ऐसा बच्चा होता है तो वो फ्लश नहीं कर पाता है, तो हमें देखना है, हमें उनके पीछे आई रखनी है कि वो उनका वो जो वॉशरूम है वो ठीक से फ्लश करें वहाँ पे, उनको सिखाना है कि आप इनको बोले फ्लश करें, एक टीचर को इसके साथ रखें, तो उससे क्या होगा वो बच्चे साफ रहेंगे। और जब भी कोई ये हो तो उनको सिखाना है कि किससे लड़े, जब भी कोई हो, क्योंकि आज जब हम देखें आफ्टर 6th वी हैव अ डिज़ास्टर मैनेजमेंट इन एवरी स्कूल। जब भी हम देखें तो हमें डिज़ास्टर मैनेजमेंट एक बुक आती है, उसमें क्या है, उसमें मिटिगेशन मेजर्स है, हर एक क्लाइमेटिक चेंज के बारे में, चाहे फ्लड हो, चाहे डिज़ास्टर हो, कोई भी चाहे हमें अर्थक्वेक आए, हमें उसमें मिटिगेशन मेजर्स दिए गए होते हैं कि हम कैसे कर पाएँ, हम अपने आप को कैसे बचाएँ। तो हमें वही चीज़ है, हमें स्कूल में वो चार्ट्स लगाने चाहिए, बच्चों को बताना चाहिए, वो प्रैक्टिस करना चाहिए, वो मिटिगेशन मेजर जो है वो हमें उनको प्रैक्टिसाइज़ करना चाहिए स्कूल में, कि ऐसा जब अर्थक्वेक आएगा तो ऐसे खुद को बचाना है, बच्चों को सिखाना चाहिए। मुझे लगता है ये चीज़ बहुत बच्चों को ये करेगी इन एवरी स्कूल।
थैंक यू, वंडरफुली सेड इनिशा, एंड थैंक यू वेरी वेरी मच। आपको बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, आपने बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट कुछ बातें हमें बताई है एंड अपने तजुर्बे से। It was very interesting to see how a child leader thinks and how she mobilizes support for the climate action interventions that she wants to take up in her school or in her locality. Insha is very much involved in afforestation activities, green belt formation, waste segregation, and all those kind of interventions. And she has done that by mobilizing children and youth in her school and in her locality. How has she done that? She did not start with climate action. She started with the physical, mental, cognitive, and emotional development needs of children, how to form healthy habits, how to lead a healthy life, how to ensure that I am healthy, my environment is healthy. And one very important thing she has repeatedly mentioned, it is not enough to give information, whether it is in a school curriculum, whether it is in a book, or by speaking to someone, or you know uh, just demonstrating something. It is very, very important to practice, and until and unless we practice it in our own lives, practice it with each other, it is not going to work. So thank you, Insha, for those wonderful pearls of wisdom that you shared with us from your own leadership experience. And now we will move on to Ms. Sheen Tyagi. She is a UNFCCC volunteer. And Sheen, आपने बहुत सारा काम करा है, मैंने देखा है आपका bio brief. I'm not going into that. It was going to be pasted into the chat. But what I want to ask you is, we have been talking a lot about, collaboration, talking to each other, sharing each other's views, knowledge exchange, providing the right information at the right time, and, practicing that information in our own lives. So we have been talking a lot about those interventions and actions. But you know what? Interventions also need resources. We need even for climate justice, even for youth movements, even for children, connecting children from one part of the country to another, or one part of the world to another, we need resources. So what kind of resources are we looking at? I mean, it's not only about technical or material resources or financial resources or human resources one at a time, but it's a combination of resources, as I understand it. But I would like to ask you, in your journey, what kind of challenges that you have faced in mobilizing resources, ensuring that resources are allocated efficiently and you can use it well in the optimum most optimum sense possible. So my question to you is on that. Over to you, Sheen.
Thank you so much for your question. Actually, it makes a lot of sense, the question that you've asked. Good afternoon, everyone. And it's really my pleasure to be here. To answer your question, yes, it's a factor of a lot of resources coming into play, yes, financial ones. But that is something you will find that for young people like us, we do not have that sort of a financial support to get started. And that is something which my journey started quite very early at the age of 10, but at that age I did not even know what climate change was, right? For me it was something related to my own just a second. Yes, it was related to my own personal journey, as in, like, when I was 10, I used to see that everybody else was getting education, but there was some students who couldn't. So that was how I started my journey, wherein I was trying to help students get education in whatever small way I could. And that is where I could really relate to what Insha had said. And then moving on, when I realized that there is more that I can do and there are more issues that can be actually challenged, I moved into gender equality. And in a sense, when you look at it from a very broad perspective, climate change is something which is a very huge problem, but it is very interlinked as well, because communities are affected by it, but communities are also affected by other things. So when we are trying to work for change, you are never just working for one thing, you're working for a multiple different issues which you resonate with, or which you can offer some sort of expertise in. Now, I've seen that, when you move in this journey, what challenges you would face in, talking about from the, Indian context, is firstly, people having many different other issues, other pressing issues, which stop them from even considering climate change as an issue which they need to work on, right? We have issues like, basic access to food, quality healthy food, right? We have health issues, we have education issues, we have empowerment issues in India. And so, because these are such pressing issues which are already prevalent in our community, people are not really looking at climate change as one of the important topics that we need to discuss. And and so I think it's always been, the case that people tend to focus more on their personal issues than looking at more of a community broad view, and which is very understandable, sensing, like when you do not have even, like food to put in your stomach, why would you care about what's going on in the world, right? And so these are the sort of cultural barriers that you are faced with as an Indian change maker, because even though climate advocacy is gaining traction globally, it is a very distant priority here in India, right? I also feel that when you are trying to bring climate justice conversations in such spaces, you need to have a very deep understanding of the cultural nuances of India or any other South Asian country, to be honest. And so what I've seen, what has worked for me is the is finding intersectionality in everything, in connecting climate action to immediate social concerns as well. And so that really helps you reach out to people in a better way. Also, another issue that I've seen as an Indian change maker is the fact that we do not have the sort of platform or community where young people, children and youth can actually engage with the policymakers for climate change. Um, we already have policymakers and leaders with, preconceptions, and they are comfortable in their own way. And all of us really value comfort, but at some point you need to really look at things from a broader perspective and say that, okay, it has been very easy and comfortable for me to go on this way, but is this healthy for, you know the people attached to me and the larger community? Is this healthy and sustainable in the long term? And you need to understand that the current situation that we are faced with, we cannot be selfish. We cannot simply say that, okay, it doesn't really matter, we'll go in our own way. So it requires a certain amount of self awareness and certain amount of effort to change your ways. And I feel that many people are still stuck in the old ways and they're not willing to change. On an individual level, it's very easy that for you to distribute the waste, biodegradable waste, non-biodegradable waste. It's something that is very easy to do, but people won't really do it because it's a hassle, right? But we need to push people to make changes, and in the same way we need to push policymakers to hear youth and children voices. It's not just that the young people, just because they are young, they don't have those years of experience, that they don't have something valuable to add to the table. No, that's not the case. And that is something that I've seen a fellow change makers push for, because we have like in India we have so many diverse leaders with unique voices and insights. Recently at Elcoe, when I was there, I met people from all sorts of backgrounds and they had such great thoughts to share. But it's just that it is not being heard because like we do not have a common platform or the conducive environment that is required for youth and children to engage. So that is also something that Anirudh sir also shared, and I would reiterate that is one of the very pressing issues that we need to work on, so that young people can actually share the challenges that they are faced with and kind of also interact in the environment, not just in the local sense but also the national and the international sense. So yeah, that's what I would say for this question. Thank you.
Thank you, Shin. Those are very good reflections, and I really agree with you. This webinar is actually part of a series that we started in order to understand people's perspectives on engaging children and youth in climate action. The very first time we started on this journey, we spoke to around 152 children across the country in 8 locations, and we tried to understand what they want when it comes to the words climate action in their context. And we came up with a charter of changes that they have mentioned, and in fact very largely the things that feature in them include pollution related actions, both, I mean, air, water. In fact, even they're talking about indoor air quality. They're talking about, restoring, water bodies, rainwater harvestation, not in so many words, but what they have said. I remember one child saying that at one point of time during the year we have so much water, raining down on our heads, and it is making puddles, and it is going away, it is becoming a waste because it is going into the drains and into the sewers and all those things. But in at other times we don't have any water at all. We are we feel so thirsty, we feel we have to ration water. Why can't we, use the water when it comes to us, when it and store it in some way so that we can use it year round when we are feeling thirsty during the other parts of the year. I mean, just think about it. A child is thinking about rainwater harvesting, and we use a lot of keywords, we use a lot of, you know um, phrases and, buzzwords and all that. But those are very simple things that if we just talk to them, if we just hear what they are saying, we can actually see that they are coming up with very very pertinent and very very relevant ideas that we need to act on. And this is something that also, pertains to the deep diving into the localization aspect of the entire gamut of this complex myriad of issues and in the entire spectrum, and all the intersectionalities that we need to think of, and all the complexities. But thank you, Sheen. Thank you for giving us a very clear perspective on this entire scenario. Coming to you, Aniruddha, for your comment.
Thanks, Shin. Thanks, Insha, because I have got uh, something to learn, something new from you. At the same time, I would like to just say only one thing, that is, awareness is not enough. So, the facilitator and the implementer, these are the two different categories of people. One is that children, those who cannot take a decision as per many of the government systems. So children are not the voters. Voters are the decision making. They have the decision making power. So 18 plus, and there is a category that up to 18, the people are children. 18 to 35, this is youth category. So there are two categories of people. This is one thing. So children and youth, their roles are different, but both are citizens of the country. And the facilitators, those who are facilitating, they also have a role, very serious role to play. That is, they need to understand themselves first and make understand to children and youth that how, why, where, what, and all these things. So inquisitiveness can be uh, just encouraged. And another important thing is that always we need to think that the awareness we have been talking about, awareness, the actually it is over. So it has to be taken into action. So awareness needs to be taken into action, and that is the role of the facilitators, who should actually inject that children and youth should understand that. And how they will understand, the facilitator will understand that. So facilitator has a role in all these things. So that's what actually I wanted to say, because it's a, there are many children and youth. So I wanted to say that the facilitator's role should be like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Aniruddha. And I think we are all agreed on one very salient fact, that people need to be connected. By people, I mean children, youth, youngsters, however we describe them. They need to be connected. They need to have access to a particular platform where they can exchange views with each other, exchange what is happening in their context with each other, exchange each other's problems and solutions and innovations and thoughts and reflections with each other, because that's how we learn, that's how we grow. And until and unless we connect with each other, it is very difficult to sustain a momentum. However many movements we try to lead, however many movements we try to steer, it is very, very important to sustain the momentum that we have gained. And that can only be done as we build our voices stronger and stronger through each connecting with each other, through learning from each other and sharing our experiences and our thoughts and reflections with each other. That is very, very important. Connections, collaborations, platforms, enabling environment, a safe place where you can speak, where you can talk, where you can discuss anything and everything to do with climate action. And not only climate action is not a standalone thing. It is a cross-cutting thing, sort of. It is interspersed with intersectionalities. It is interspersed with a myriad of basic goals and basic objectives, social objectives, economic objectives, economic well-being, social well-being, emotional well-being. A lot of different things are interspersed with it. So we just cannot think of climate action as a standalone thing. So that is something that has come up very, very strongly today. And my heartfelt gratitude, my honest gratitude to all of the panelists here who have spoken very, very well. And we plan to carry on this series throughout the next year as well. And we plan to bring you back to this platform and ask you all sorts of hard questions to get answers for the get answers for the children and youth out there who are listening to you right now. A lot of adults are also listening to you right now, and I'm sure you have been as inspiring to them as you have been to us. But this is not the end of the program. The panel is at an end, but I would request Michelle to see if there are any questions or experiences or suggestions that are coming up from the house or not. So please, all panelists, I request you to stay here. And over to you, Michelle, for the final.
Before Michelle comes, I have one more thing to add. That is, Devadita, you are repeatedly you have used the term localization. So if it is so, and if you have a plan like this, so I can request Michelle and people in the Sphere India Academy, so that they can take it like it is in English or in Hindi, as I have asked you. So, but there are many children, they don't understand either English or Hindi. Or
Absolutely.
so can Bal Raksha Bharat with Save the Children, and we will facilitate, we will help in our network, through our network, that other children should also understand, and similar kind of discussions can be taken over.
We'll be very, very happy to work with you on this, Dada. We want children to understand this in their own language, in a very non-professional way, in a way that it is very simple to understand and very simple to work on. हम लोग चाहते हैं कि बच्चे अपने जो भाषा है, अपनी जो भाषा है, उस भाषा में चीजों को समझे, चीजों को सीखे, चीजों को देखे, एंड उनकी बातें भी हम लोग को उन्हीं की भाषा में हम लोग को समझ में आए. एंड इंशा आई विल कम बैक टू यू ऑन द एंटायर डिस्कशन. जो भी हमारे चर्चा हुए हैं, मुझे पता है यू आर कंफर्टेबल इन बोथ हिंदी एंड इंग्लिश, बट मैं फिर भी आई विल कम बैक टू यू. मैं आपके पास वापस आऊंगी आज की जो चर्चा हुई है उसको लेके, ताकि हम लोग एक understanding पे पहुंच पाए. With that, over to you, Michelle, for the rest of the Q&A and the valediction.
Thanks, Devadrita, and thanks to all the panelists so far. It has been very inspiring to hear from each and every one of you. For the participants, if you have any comments or questions to share for our panelists here today, you can unmute yourself, or if you're comfortable sharing it on text, please drop your questions or comments in the chat box. So I'll give you a few moments, so you can either raise your hand or just unmute yourself directly and speak.
In the meantime, Michelle, can we have a photo? Tauhidul sab, aap apna camera, if you can switch on your camera. Dr. Tawhidul? If yeah, great. Michelle, can we have a photo?
Sure, we'll
It
just take
is
a screenshot.
Toidul sir is 3.5 hours advance than Indian Standard Time. So that's why it is dark.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us despite the late hours. Okay, once again, if the participants have any questions or comments to share, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, we'll close the session for today.
I think I could just, if you allow me, I could just make one comment.
Sure, please
Uh,
go ahead, sir.
All right. Basically, we know the problems. We know the problems very well. The risk assessments are done, but we are not very good in solving the problems. And it is not happening for many factors that we know. Political commitments are not there, and many other challenges are there. So, is there any way we could just think why things are not progressing despite the fact that we know the problems very well, or at least not very, or at least we know it pretty well. So this is my question. So if you just think of it, if there is any opportunity to just look into the matter. Thank you.
Ma'am, you are mute.
I think one of the participants, Bars again, is trying to share, or they have unmuted. If you have any inputs to share.
Michelle, a bit loud, please.
Yeah, I was just sharing that one of the participants, Bars again, has unmuted. So if they would like to share anything, please feel free to do so.
By the time when others are actually writing their questions, I would like to answer what Tohid Bhai has said. It is a behavioral change issue. So in our subcontinent, mainly we are focusing on the problems. We do not have developed. We have not developed. We have not developed the habit of finding out the solutions. We are trying to just pass it on to other agencies that he will do, they will do all kind of things. So that habit has to be changed, and this is a behavior change issue, as I said. So that habit has to be changed, and if we can understand that there are solutions from within, the solutions from within means it should not be a high-tech solution, that rocket science is not a solution for a economically poor community. So impoverishment process, as few people understand this impoverishment processes, they call them poor. So I am saying economically poor. So the thing is that you need to be very culturally appropriate. Your understanding should be like one community, one tribal community, they are culturally, they are not like, for example, Devadita has invited James here. So in Kenya, can we introduce rice chapati like staple foods which we are habituated here? No, their staple food is ugali. So we cannot. So we have to be culturally appropriate. We know that we need to know what ugali is, how ugali is being prepared, and all these things. Then only we can talk to them. Otherwise, people will not accept us. If people do not accept us, then it would be difficult for us to just give some solutions. So it is in a participatory way. If we can develop solutions from within, because the local resources should be there, diversity issues should be there, all these things, local awareness level should also be there. So inclusive inclusiveness, if it is there, then we can think of many things. Thank you.
I would also like to add to what Sir just said. We need to understand that we have very different stratas of people living in our society right now. There are people who are economically weaker and they cannot afford to implement changes, but I feel like our government system also needs to devise a way wherein people who are earning more are held more accountable, because the people who are earning more have the purchasing power to purchase things which are going to harm our environment. And so it is all a very dependent cycle on how much money you can afford to spend on things which are harming our environment. And so you should be contributing in one way or the other to make up for the consumeristic factors that come into play in our economy. I feel like like Sir just said, our people are very much problem oriented and very less solution oriented, and we are already very much comfortable in however we are functioning, and we are not open to changing. So I feel like there is some sort of government intervention that needs to come into play, wherein people, if they are not ready to change just on the philanthropic manner or nature of their existence, we need to counter this issue in a different way, by a different approach, wherein they're forced to change themselves. But that is something that needs to be done when all options are out of play, and I feel like at this point we are pretty much out of play of all other options. So yeah, that is something that needs to also be considered. But again, this is something which is more on the policy level and difficult to communicate with the government as well. So yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Aniruddha and Sheen, for complementing the points on collaboration and continuous dialogue, and also multi-stakeholder partnerships and very local grassroots level action for resilience building. And also that we need complementing regulatory and policy measures to also enforce changes that will help sustain adaptation initiatives across different communities that are very locally and culturally sensitive to those specific regions. And I don't see any further questions, but as Debadrita also mentioned, this has been a very insightful session with all of you. I would like to thank Debadrita for moderating this panel very wonderfully and within the time that we have. So we are very right on time, and it was really great to once again hear from Dr. Aniruddha De, Professor Tawhidul Islam, and also from our very inspiring young leaders today on call, James, Insha, and Sheen, for sharing tangible activities that they are engaged in and they are working on different aspects of youth in climate action. That's very important, and how it's important to be in continuous dialogue with policymakers, even when adults are sometimes reluctant to change their opinions or do not take this into consideration. It's still important to keep engaging as a generation that is already taking over this space. So thank you so much for all that you do, and it's really great. So as Deeparita also mentioned, this is not the last in our series. We'll continue with our webinar series, and as has been suggested, we'll do more of these sessions in vernacular languages as well. So we'll keep updating this in our social media channels as well. So please stay tuned for more announcements in the future. And thank you so much, and have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here, and please enjoy the rest of your day.